Hey everybody, it's Pastor Greg.
And Pastor Yolanda.
On behalf of ourselves and the Celebration Spiritual Center family, we want to wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving.
Have an amazing holiday.
We love you. Now let's get into the message. And it's the truth of your life, it's the truth of my life, it's the truth of everybody's life. Do you know you're enough? Are you ready to live from that place of being enough? And it's not just in our giving, it's in our relationships, it's at work. Yes, yes. It's everywhere. When we come from that place of thinking that we're not enough, that's what shows up. That's what the comments from our bosses may be, feedback, reflecting that we don't think we're enough. So we must see that out in the world. But when we start from the place that we're enough, that we matter, that we're powerful, that we're worthy, then we get that back. Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. How's everybody doing? Good. It's good to see you all. So we're in our final week, Law of Circulation series. As we give, we receive. And just as a brief review, in week 1, the topic was source or resource. And what I talked about that week was that I wanted to create the foundation that first we have to understand, where does all that we receive come from? Because we get mixed up sometimes when, you can get laid off or hours get cut back and we think, oh no, my source has gone dry. But what we know to be true is actually those are resources. The source is the well that never runs dry. The source is abundance. The source is prosperity. The source is reflecting more than enough all the time. And so yes, pathways, channels, systems may dry up. They may diminish, but we recognize that there's more than enough, that the source never dries out. So the source will just use another means, another channel. But we have to be clear about the source versus the resource, because when we focus on the resource as the thing that's sustaining us, it's going to fail us. And then we freak out. In the second week, the topic was stop tithing, start giving. And the teaching there, we looked at the symbolic idea of tithing as it first is brought to us in the Bible and in the Old Testament with the story of Abraham and Sarah and Melchizedek. And we talked about the temple practice of tithing. And we recognized that that was a very legalistic way of giving. There was fear that was attached to it. In the book of Malachi, it says, will a man rob God? Yes, you have robbed me in not giving your tithes and offerings. And so there's this idea that if you're not giving, you're robbing God, which then creates fear. Right? And so many people give their tithes because I don't want to rob God and I don't want God to be mad at me, right? But then that posture of giving doesn't actually open you up to the abundance and prosperity that really is available. And so what we understand and what we teach here at CSC, that it's about giving, not tithing, not giving from a place of fear, not giving from a place of obligation, but giving from a place of, I am enough, there is more than enough. As I give, I know I must then receive more than enough. And so that's why it doesn't matter the amount that you give. Tithing means tenth. Give a 10%, right? And then you will be blessed. Warren Buffett gives 90%. He's a billionaire, right? So it's not about the amount. It's about the posture. Warren Buffett understands that there is more than enough. He understands it so much that he's willing to give away 90% of his income, and he knows that he will still remain wealthy, right? So it's not about the amount. It's about the thought and how we are giving. Last week, the topic was the art of receiving, recognizing that many of us are grand givers. We know how to give. We give, of course, here at CSC, we give to our families, we give in our occupations, we give to our communities in so many different ways. And then we get frustrated because we feel like we've been giving in all these ways, but I'm not seeing the blessings. I heard there was a law of circulation. As I give, I receive. I don't think I'm receiving. And so we talked about the posture that we must move into in order to receive, and recognizing that actually everything in our life, every person, every experience is a representation of God or the universe giving back to us. And so I used a couple examples. We talked about receiving compliments. Are we able to receive compliments? When someone compliments us, if we kind of brush it off, well, that was the universe giving back to you just as you had given all these other times. If someone wants to pay the bill when you're out for brunch, and you're like, oh, no, it's okay. Well, you just said no to the universe that was trying to give back to you as you've been giving, right? And so again, many times we think about this law of circulation, it's flow. And the art of receiving, we were talking about looking at, well, where are we blocking the flow? In those insignificant moments, seemingly insignificant moments. But what I know to be true is that when we say yes to those moments, then we open up the flow and we keep it going. We keep it going. So we've taken a magnificent journey. Yes, we've talked about a lot. I mean, just that review, it's like, okay, we can go home, source or resource, stop tithing, start giving, the art of receiving. What else is there to talk about, right? We recognize now this profound truth that we're not concerned about the channel anymore. We're not concerned about the way that the funds come. We recognize that God, the universe, the all source can use anything, right? Even when somebody tells us that a channel is closed, it'll open up for us when it won't open up for other folk. I've told the story here about when I received a bonus. It's a company I worked at previously. We weren't supposed to get bonuses. It was during the economic downturn, all of these things. I was working for a publishing company. Publishers were closing. Every article I read was, publishing is going down and, digital versus print, and they're losing money, all of these things, right? And we weren't supposed to get bonuses, but I got a bonus when nobody else did, right? So I recognize that, it's not about it's not about the channel, right? I recognize that source is abundant. And even when someone says that this channel is closed, it may be closed for some. That don't mean it got to be closed for you, right? We know that to be true. We've learned and focused on this idea that abundance is really the stuff of life, that abundance and prosperity are natural parts of life. This is why I spoke to it in the song, that just like the air is plentiful, flowers that bloom in multiples. The universe is showing to us at all times that more than enough is the natural way of being on the earth. We look up in the sky. I was just in North Carolina, and it was great to be in the South because I got to see open sky. And being able to just look and see all of those stars, uncountable. I was looking at the truth of more than enough. Now, we know the metaphysical principle, as above, so below, as below, so above. If it is true above in the cosmos, it must be true for me, right? It is a natural part of life. Abundance is, prosperity is, more than enough is. And we see that over and over. There are 7 billion people here on this planet. 7 billion, and people are coming and going every day, but it never runs out. Just think about that for a second. It never runs out. When was the last time you were worried if there was going to be enough oxygen on the planet? Right? More than enough is. And so we recognize that when we are thinking or feeling otherwise, then we're just reflecting thoughts of lack. We're reflecting thoughts of limitation, and so it must be. This is the only reason we have greedy folk on the earth, because they think there's not enough. That's all, right? There's nothing wrong with them, but there's so many things, this is why we can't put too much time into watching the news. Check the weather, do what you got to do. But generally speaking, the news is reflecting to us over and over again, there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. Beating that drum, and then many of us start to believe it. So we know all of these things. We recognize all of these things. But what is absolutely true, and I love to talk about this, is that talking about this stuff is useless, pointless. I love knowledge. I love information. I love it. But it's useless in and of itself. And so that's why the topic of this message is, it'll work if you work it. Can you just look at anybody, look at somebody and just say that to me? It'll work if you work it. And I was reminded, as I thought about that, again, we have to use knowledge. We have to apply what we've learned. We have to become the beers of this truth, not just the hearers of this truth. We have to live it. And I was reminded in chapter 5 of Think and Grow Rich, Specialized Knowledge, Napoleon Hill talks about knowledge. It's the only place that I've ever really heard anybody say this, because we've heard the idea that knowledge is power, yes? We've heard that, and that sounds good, and that's almost true. But Napoleon Hill says something very interesting. He writes this: knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money. Lack of understanding of this fact has been the source of confusion to millions of people who falsely believe that knowledge is power. It is nothing of the sort. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge by and of itself is useless. It's like gas for a car is not power. It's useless unless it's put in the car, the ignition is turned, and then you drive around the city. Knowledge is just like gas potential sitting there at the gas station, but it's not being used. And so as we've spent these 3 weeks talking about the law of circulation, I encourage you to work it. I encourage you to work it. Don't just sit in the knowledge of the law of circulation. The knowledge of, oh yeah, I know, yeah, as I give, I receive. Yeah, that's spiritual truth. I know that. As I receive, I give. Yes, I know that. Yeah, there's really only, there's only source. I don't get caught up in resources. Talking about that, right? Oh, that's cute. Talking about the knowledge of, oh, well, yeah, Pastor Greg was breaking down that, tithing metaphysically is really about the left side and the right side and the male and female and giving a tenth and all of this beautiful, wonderful. That's great knowledge. But I only bring knowledge for us to use it. That's the only point. Otherwise, it's just potential. So how do we apply this law of circulation? And my encouragement to you is to start with something small, right? I'm sure we all want to become millionaires. I'm sure we would love, just piles of money, right? But if you can't expect or if you cannot give $100, right, from a place of knowing that there is more than enough, from a place of knowing that I'm not losing $100, but I'm giving from my abundance, I'm giving from my overflow, then you need to start with something small, right? Maybe it's $5, maybe it's another amount, right? But you have to be able to find that amount for you that you can stand in conviction and not worry about, because that's how the principle works. That's how the principle works. And so even if 10% is the thing that works for you, God bless you. If it's 1%, if it's 2%, whatever it is, if it's 0.01%, it doesn't matter as long as you can do that without fear, without worry, and you can give it freely. Because then you're operating in the flow. Then the universe will respond. She's giving freely, and so I give back to her freely, right? And so I was reminded, I'm actually going to take two passages from Florence Scovel Shinn. She was kind of really inspiring for me for this message. And I want to go first to one of her books, The Secret Door to Success. For those of you, if you don't know who Florence Scovel Shinn is, she's a powerful, powerful New Thought teacher back in the early days. I know she was born, I believe, in the late 19th century and lived here in New York. She was an artist, but also just a profound, profound teacher. Her words continue to stir me to this day. And one of her most famous books is The Game of Life and How to Play It, which we'll reference. But this book, The Secret Door to Success, she's talking about Psalms 23, which, we did a message on Psalms 23 recently. And she's talking about that opening line, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, which is powerful. If you pray that, it's the same vibration of I am enough, right? The Lord, the all, everything that is my shepherd. The thing that takes care of me, I can want for nothing. So that's why I give freely, right? And so she says this, a woman suddenly had the realization, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall never want. She seemed to be touching her invisible supply. She felt outside of time and space. She no longer relied on the external. Her first demonstration was a small but necessary one. She needed at once some large paper clips, but had no time to go to a stationer to buy them. In looking for something else, she opened a little used chest, and in it she found about a dozen large paper clips. She felt that the law was working and gave thanks. And then she needed some money, and then some needed money appeared. Things large and small came her way. Since then, she has relied upon the statement, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall never want. We used to hear people say, I do not think it is right to ask God for money or things. They did not realize that this creative principle is within each man or woman, the Father within. True spirituality is proving God as your supply daily, not just once in a while. It'll work if you work it. I love this. True spirituality is proving God as your supply daily, not just once in a while. Napoleon Hill says knowledge is potential power, but knowledge is not power in and of itself. It has to be used. We have to prove God as our supply every day. Make that the truth of your life. And so we start small. As I was reading this, I was reminded, and I believe I've shared this before, I'm not sure, but I know I've shared it in one of our classes. There was an issue with the pipes in our kitchen. And I needed to get a washer to fix it. I had reached out to our super, but I knew he wouldn't be available. So Home Depot is right by our house. I said, I'll go over to Home Depot, get what I need. I'm not a plumber, but I just felt I could do it. So, so I go to Home Depot, and I had a sense of what I needed. I went to the plumbing aisle, and I'm scanning the aisle. And so immediately, I don't see the first thing I see is the tool that I need. So I grab my tool. But then the washer that I need, I don't see it. And I'm looking at other things, and our fittings on the pipe, it's metal fittings. So I'm going down to like the PVC pipes, but I can't use that stuff. And I'm going back up and down the aisle. I'm not seeing what I need. And I started saying, because I was kind of getting frustrated, I'm like, I'm not seeing it. And I'm going up and down the aisle, and other people are coming down the aisles and getting help, but I'm going to find it myself. I'm not going to ask for help. And I'm like, I'm not seeing what I'm looking for. And then I realized what I was praying and what I was experiencing by virtue of my powerful self, praying, I am not seeing what I'm looking for. And so I began to say to myself, oh, okay, let me switch that. Okay, I am seeing what I'm looking for. And I began to walk again. I'm seeing. I didn't really believe myself at first, but I'm like, I'm seeing what I'm looking for. I'm seeing what I'm looking for. And it brought me back to the very place that I started when I first walked down the aisle. Smack in front of my face was the very piece that I needed. It was there in abundance. I bought like 3 of them just because. Right? And I bring up that story. I mean, there's a teaching moment. There's a lot of teaching in that story, but the idea of starting small. Right? Maybe right now, okay, the financial thing might be a little too big, but just like in the story, the paper clips, you needed paper clips. And when you need paper clips, you need them, right? It's not, and so you can use it in that moment, something small, something insignificant, something that doesn't feel like, oh my God, the world will crumble if I don't have these paper clips. But what you're doing is you're proving the law, as Florence Scovel Shinn says so gratefully, proving God is your supply daily, not just once in a while. And so you use it in that way, and then you've now built up your faith. You've now built up your confidence in this law that is true, that is proving itself to you. Now you can move on to the financial things that you want to acquire, that you want to manifest. Say it again. It'll work if you work it. And so Florence Scovel Shinn, she offers us another idea, which I think is also powerful, thinking about the fact that God, the source, the all, the universe is actually both the giver and the gift. And so, I think that's important to understand, because when we understand that God is the giver and the gift, we understand that we're one with God, right? We understand and know that when we're having a conversation about God, we have to also include ourselves, right? If we're made in the likeness and image of God, as the Bible says, then if God is wholeness, if God is perfection, if God is holy, if God is strength, if God is peace, if God is love, then all of those things must be qualities of us. Yes, yes? It must be. I mean, there is no other place in creation that the qualities of the Creator are not in the thing that it created. There's nowhere else. I have a soon-to-be 13-year-old daughter in a couple weeks. She is a part of me. Biologically, I am in her as she is in me. We know that to be the truth in terms of that which creates, that which is created contains a part of it. Somehow we forget that when we're talking about the spiritual truth, that the all is within us. But it's the same truth. As below, so above. As above, so below. Microcosm, macrocosm. And so Florence Scovel Shinn talks about this idea of God being the giver and the gift, and I want to read this. This is from The Game of Life and How to Play It. She says, I am asked so often by my students, how can I get rid of fear? I reply, by walking up to the thing that you are afraid of. The lion takes its fierceness from your fear. Walk up to the lion, and he will disappear. Run away, and he runs after you. I have shown in previous chapters how the lion of lack disappeared when the individual spent money fearlessly, showing faith that God was his supply and therefore unfailing. Many of my students have come out of the bondage of poverty and are now bountifully supplied through losing all fear of letting money go out. The subconsciousness is impressed with the truth that God is the giver and the gift. Therefore, as one is one with the giver, he is one with the gift. A splendid statement is, I now thank God the giver for God the gift. Can we affirm that? I now thank God the giver Thank God the giver, for God the gift. So you're always having an experience with God, right? Just like we talked about last week with the idea of receiving, that when your friend offers to pay for your lunch, pay for your brunch, that's God the gift right there, right? But when you're giving, if you're giving to CSC, or if you're the friend that's offering to pay for lunch, you're God the giver in that moment. But it's always God, right? It's all good. It's all God. Yes, yes? It's always God. That's powerful. So then we have a choice. We have a choice in closing. When we talk about giving, we're talking about standing in fear or standing in faith, right? Because we say it'll work if you work it. Well, that means that in order to work it, your faith must come into the equation. It must be applied, right? We know and we recognize and we talk often about this equation, if you will, this formula, that thought with emotion plus our desire or belief equals manifestation, equals demonstration, equals creation, equals you getting what you want, right? And so in this moment, as we're thinking about the law of circulation and recognizing the truth that as we give, we receive, as we receive, we give, recognizing that it can only work if we work it. If we choose not to, we've chosen the path of fear. We've chosen the path of I'm not enough. We've chosen the path of unworthiness, undeservedness, of smallness, if we choose not to work it. We've chosen a default way of living, the up and down. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. We've chosen the path of people don't like me, so that's why I don't get what I want. We've chosen the path that, well, some people are just born of a better pedigree, and so that's why they have financial abundance and I don't. But faith says something different. The path of faith says the beauty of law, spiritual law and natural law, it's true for everybody. That's why it's law, right? It's true for absolutely everybody. We love the fact that in this country, although we're still, desiring for certain laws to become universal for us all in every state, we recognize that in this particular country, generally speaking, the laws apply to everyone. And we recognize that these laws, as a citizen of this country, we are all entitled to the same privileges, right? Well, it is true on the spiritual level. This idea of as we give, we receive, it's not just true for the wealthy. It's not just true for Warren Buffett or Bill and Melinda Gates, right? Because they're billionaires. No, it's not just true for them. It's true for you. But it will only work if you work it. And how do we work it? We have to apply our faith. We have to believe this to be true. So start with something small. This is why we say that, right? It's easier to believe that we can receive a dozen paper clips when we need it in the short term, right? Than maybe the rent money that we absolutely need, right? But what I also know to be true is that many times when we're in that crisis situation, we're forced to believe, right? The so-called miracles that show up, it's not a miracle, it's natural law in operation. I'll go back again to Think and Grow Rich. I love that Napoleon Hill says this. He says, I don't believe in miracles. He said, I believe in the natural order of the universe. And I recognize that we don't understand the natural order of the universe, and so we think that it's miraculous. But, and it's because when you think about it, people didn't just start getting healed when Jesus was around or when Jesus left, right? Healings continue to happen. It's documented, spontaneous remission, all kinds of things have been healed. That didn't just start happening, right? At what point do we recognize that healing is a natural occurrence, right? Like it's normal, right? People didn't just start going from being born in utter poverty to then going to amazing wealth, right? Just that's not like a new story. When do we realize that that's something that's possible for us all? It's not an anomaly. It's natural law, but it only works if you work it. Because the universe is so loving, it can't force anything on you. I love this. We talked about this last week in the God Talk. It respects you as a creator. Like the universe respects you as a creator. You're a creator, and it will allow you to create whatever it wants in your experience. It's not going to circumvent you as a king or queen of your kingdom. It can't. It respects you. And so whatever it is that you desire, whether it's wanted or unwanted, it will give to you freely because it knows that you're a king. It knows that you're a queen. It knows that you're a creator. And so because we have this possibility to create anything we want in our life experience, let's choose to create what we want. Let's choose this path of faith. Let's choose this path of faith and work this law. And it's not just about finances, right? Again, it's our relationships. It's our careers. It's our jobs. It will work if you work it. Last November, in the Mystery of Giving, I talked about the song that Michael Jackson wrote after 9/11. It was, "What More Can I Give?" Recognizing that there was a deficit of love on the earth. Anytime something like that could happen, it's like, oh, we haven't been giving to the degree that we need to and from the place that we need to receive that love. So much so that there's a group of people that feel so hated, right, and so misunderstood that they have taken this most extreme, ugly action to get the world's attention. And his response was to write a song that says, "What more can I give?" Because if love was more present in the earth, A Course in Miracles teaches us that every act of fear is a call for love. Yes, yes? So if there was more love on the earth, we know that then we would just experience the fruits of that love. And so anytime we see an event like that, well, okay, collectively, we've been giving with a different expectation of what we really want. As we give, we receive. That is natural law, the law of circulation, the law of abundance, the law of prosperity. Call it what you want. Give it your own name to make it feel good, right? But work it. Work it. Yes, yes? Yes, yes. Are you ready to work it? Yes. All right, well, with that, let's stand. Oh, my God. We know in this moment that we are enough. We represent the billions and billions of people that are here on this earth. That is just one small example of being enough. We breathe in now, and we freely breathe in oxygen. That is a symbol and a reminder that there is more than enough. We can look outside and we see clouds in the sky. We look out in this day, we experience more than enough sunshine. And what's beautiful is that the sun is not stingy. It's not just worried about if it can only shine on New York right now. Powerful. There is more than enough sunshine for us all. And even as we go into the nighttime and experience the moonlight, we know that there is more than enough moonlight and the sun can continue to shine its light eternally. We look at these representations of more than enough because it reminds us that maybe that's just the default of life. Maybe we've been sold down a river of lack and limitation, of not enough, and it's just not the truth. But in this moment, we choose to get off that boat. We choose to get off that ship. We choose to leave that party. And we walk into the prosperity party. We walk into the room where everyone in the room knows that there's more than enough, so we're more than willing to share. We walk into the space where community is there, and we know that we have more than enough love to give each and every one, that no one is left out, that no one is lost. We walk into a space, into a reality that knows that we can all live wealthy as kings and queens, and that it doesn't take away from anyone or anybody else. We walk into a space that we know that we can earn to the level that we desire, and know that that earning doesn't have to come on the backs of someone else. We've seen that operated in the earth, but we recognize that that was a thought in limitation. I'm reminded of the story of the prodigal son. At the moment that he realized that he could go back home, at the moment that he realized and came to himself that he wanted to go back home, he remembered that even his father's servants had more than enough. That is the truth of the kingdom of God. That is the truth of life itself, that even the servants have more than enough. In this moment, I imagine a world right here and now where even the workers in the Nike factories have more than enough. And so we can enjoy the luxuries of life, the beautiful things of life, without feeling any reticence or hesitance or feeling bad because it was built on the backs of somebody else. Even the servants have more than enough. That is equally possible, and that is what we are choosing to stand in today for our lives, and we stand here in proxy even for our families. There is more than enough for us all. And as we move into this week of Thanksgiving, we move into this week with gratitude and appreciation for all that is, for the bounty. It is a recognition that there is more than enough. It is a holiday that brings us back to this very idea. And we know that this idea can only manifest in our lives if we work it, if we apply it, if we believe it, if we apply our faith. Then it must come into being easily and effortlessly. So we are choosing and challenging ourselves to step into this vibration and into this reality and live here for the remainder of our days on this earth. And as I know that we have made that choice collectively, I know that I am standing amongst a radically blessed people. I know that I am standing here now amongst abundant people, amongst prosperous people, amongst wealthy people in every area of their lives. And I celebrate their bounty with them. We walk through this week with our heads held high because we know who we are and we know whose we are. To this we say, amen, amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is.